you for bearing with me through that. And yeah, thanks for coming. If you're here, it's because you are attending our Lane County Farm to School info session. And although we are in an era where lots of folks are familiar with Zoom etiquette, I'm just going to go over a few things to make it hopefully a little bit simpler for all of us. So the first step is, if you are wanting to and able to turn your video on, if you'd like to, and then you can rename yourself by clicking on the ellipses in the right-hand corner of your own screen. And if you want, you can share your name, your pronouns, and what organization you represent. And please, I think everybody has done this already, but remain muted while you're not speaking, or especially if you are in a noisy place. And some questions, any questions that you have in the beginning when our presenters are speaking can be added to the chat box as you think of them. If presenters have time while they're speaking in the beginning, they can answer them as they go, but we'll have lots of time at the end for question and answer. So we will definitely get to your questions. And if you have them, just put them in the chat as you go. Yeah, and Rachel Ward, you can directly message her in the chat if you're having any issues, either asking a question or speaking up when you want to be heard. You can message her. On that note, the session is being recorded and translated. To access the Spanish interpretation, you'll just go to at the very bottom dock of your Zoom screen. You'll have to click interpretation, and you can select Spanish. And on that same note, if at any time, Evie Hernandez is our interpreter, and if at any time during the discussion you're speaking and you see Evie do this, it's just her asking you if you can slow your speech a little bit so that she can catch up with you on the interpretation side. Additionally, there is live captioning, live transcript accessible too by looking at the same place at the very bottom dock of your Zoom screen, just by clicking live transcript and then enable auto transcription. If you start off with that, but then you don't really like it, you can disable that or choose to hide it anytime just by clicking the same live transcript button at the bottom. If you don't see those options right away at the bottom of your screen, you might also have to click the more option at the very bottom. Yeah, and then lastly, that's just to say that we're really glad you're here, and your perspective and your ideas are very welcome. And we want to make space for them and to make sure that everybody here is committed to doing that. Yeah, and with that, I'm just going to copy and paste our agenda.
Okay, we're getting some feedback on your end. It's kind of muffled.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just saying, with that, I'm going to try to get us our agenda, and I'll just have that in the chat so folks can be aware. Great. And I'm going to pass it next to our board president, Willamette Farm and Foods board president, Kate Crowley, to talk a little bit about our work here.
Thanks, Lakea. My name is Kate Crowley. Can everybody hear me okay? Great, I see thumbs up. So I'm Kate Crowley. I am a farmer myself, and I'm also the sitting board president of the Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, which is a nonprofit that has been serving Lane County for more than 40 years. Our mission is to facilitate and support the development of a secure, sustainable, and inclusive food system. We have 4 core programs: the Locally Grown Guide, our Fill Your Pantry event, Double Up Food Bucks, and Farm Stand Snap Matching, and now Farm to School. Published annually for the last 17 years, our Locally Grown Guide is the go-to resource for eaters looking to source locally grown and raised foods in Lane County. It helps connect readers to markets, farms, community-supported agriculture programs, and to learn why eating local food is good for our bodies, our communities, and the environment. Each year, we distribute around 15,000 free guides locally and also make this publication available online. The Fill Your Pantry event is our annual community bulk buying event that provides individual households with an opportunity to purchase large quantities of staple and storage crops directly from area farmers and producers. Last year, our vendors sold more than $90,000 of locally grown food at a one-day event that we held in a modified drive-through format to allow for social distancing. Double Up Food Bucks is our core equity program. SNAP recipients can double their benefits up to $10 at each market day to purchase fresh and local fruits and vegetables. Willamette Farm and Food Coalition financially supports the program at 6 markets in Lane County. And in 2020, we launched a pilot program to provide SNAP matching funds for EBT sales at local farm stands as well. Starting in 2021, Willamette Farm and Food Coalition now serves as the regional procurement hub lead for Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network in Lane County, helping schools source more local food from sustainable farms. I will also say that in 2020, in response to COVID-19, we partnered with Food for Lane County to facilitate the purchase of over $50,000 worth of produce, meat, and value-added products from more than 17 farmers in a farm to food bank program. And as a result of that, more than 13,000 pounds of locally grown food went to Food for Lane County food pantries between April and June of last year. So taking on the regional procurement hub lead role is a natural fit for our organization. Our conviction is that local food belongs everywhere, and that one of the best ways we can advance equity and access to farm fresh foods is to make them available in our institutions, in shared resources that are available to all of us, like schools. Serving locally grown foods in our area schools is a great way to empower more folks in our community to eat local. And like the Double Up Food Bucks program, Farm to School is a win-win-win. Students are served more nutritious, fresh fruits, vegetables, and other products from area farms. Our farmers benefit from an additional income stream, and we keep more dollars circulating in our regional economies, going to local producers rather than larger or national suppliers. So I want to thank all of you for attending today, and to say that Willamette Farm and Food Coalition is excited to see more locally grown foods in more schools in Lane County. And I hope everyone enjoys the conversation. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kate. Next, we're going to hear from Melina Barker. Thanks, Melina, whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. I'm just getting my slides up. Hopefully you can see this. Yes, loading. All right. Well, I'm so excited to be here today, tell you a little bit about the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network, and then talk a little bit about making your purchases from local producers. So I'm hoping we have some school food buyers here. I'm hoping we have some producers here, and we can talk a little bit about how that works and how the statewide program can support you making those connections. So first, a little bit about the network. The Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network is a network. We're a project of a nonprofit organization. We're not part of the state government, even though we work really closely with our state agency partners. And our mission is just to connect and support the members of Oregon's farm to school community, which is all of you who are here on this call, to create a just and equitable food system that provides access to healthy local school meals, as well as food, farm, and garden education. So we're really working to build a stronger movement here in Oregon through providing resources, technical assistance, which is really just answering questions and supporting you along your way, training, networking, and we do also some policy advocacy, which I'll talk more about in a minute. So by attending this regional gathering, you are part of our network. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. And we strive to be the type of network on the left or on the right. I hope it's on your right. The one that is looking more like a web. So we believe that you all have as much to learn from each other as we can share with you, and we have a lot to learn from you. So Farm to School is not a one size fits all program. It looks different across the state and nation, and we're all building it together and solving problems together. So the network program areas are just that. We work to build connections. Like I mentioned before, technical assistance, which is asking and answering questions, helping you along your way, providing resources and training opportunities. We measure the impact through a website called the Oregon Farm to School Counts. So you can see the impact farm to school is having across Oregon. And then we advocate for farm to school funding at a state level, which I'll talk to you about at the end. So our regional hubs are our way of providing technical assistance and support that is place-based. So we're really excited to be working with Willamette Farm and Food Coalition in Lane County to be your procurement hub lead. We also have an education, a farm and garden education hub lead here in Lane County, which is the School Garden Project of Lane County. So we really believe that people and relationships are at the center of farm to school. And so having regional hub leads in your community is the best way to help your community make strides in your farm to school work. We support regional gatherings like this one so that you can all share resources and learn from each other and strategize about challenges. And then we also offer an Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Conference every other year. And it's a 2-day conference that focuses on all aspects of farm to school. You can participate in workshops, keynote speakers, networking events. Usually there's resources there for you to take home. And the next conference will be in February 2022. So keep your ears out for that. The Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network offers some resources on our website. And if you're a producer interested in offering a farm field trip, you can find resources there. Lost my screen. And you can also sign up for our listserv, which will keep you connected with Oregon Farm to School information. And we have separate listservs for producers and nutrition services, so you can sign up and stay connected. And we're also supporting a new toolkit that's not out yet, but it's especially for producers, and it's called Bringing the Farm to the School Toolkit, and it will be out soon. So as Kate mentioned, farm to school is a win-win-win. Kids win, farmers win. We say farmers, but really we mean producers of all food products, and communities win. by keeping the money in your local economy and getting healthy food for your kids. So Farm to School is really three-pronged program or movement. We focus on school gardens, food and agriculture education, and then procurement, which is what we're going to focus on today. And procurement is just the word we use for schools buying local food. And understanding local procurement can seem intimidating at first. It can seem overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. We have a strong belief that there is a producer for every school and a school for every producer. So depending on your size and your product and your type of institution, we think there's matches to be made in every situation. And that's really because Farm to School is all about relationships. So making a local purchase is not going to be the same as clicking on a, list from your distributor that comes through your email, but it's all about relationships, and it really pays off for the kids in the community. So some tips if you're a food service or a school food buyer and you want to work with local producers is to be really transparent and clear about what you are looking to buy. In some cases, you may even want to create something called a request for information, which is a sheet where you describe the products that you're interested in purchasing and include specifics around your size, the way that you're used to receiving your product, if there's a certain size or box count, etc. And then any requirements that you or your school district or program has. So insurance, food safety walkthroughs, things like that. It's important to think about how you're going to be able to communicate with the producers and what kind of drop-off requirements you have. All of those are important for producers to have all the information they need to see if they're a good fit for your school or center. And then tips for local producers, if you're considering working with school food buyers, is that you need to understand that selling to schools is a process and that probably some of your products are a better fit than others. So some successful products for some farm fresh food with schools can be small apples that you can't sell in other marketplaces that are perfect for kid hands. Carrots, sometimes with the tops on, are a fun thing to have as a taste or on a salad bar. Fresh berries, cherry tomatoes, things that are easy to include in a salad bar with minimal processing. And then you're going to want to think about what kind of delivery system is going to work for you and your operation. And then think about, can you offer any additional opportunities for the schools and students that you serve? Like, are you interested in offering a farm field trip, or could you come to the cafeteria and eat lunch with the students and let them ask questions of a farmer or anything like that that can really it can really benefit the schools and build those relationships. So lots of the questions that I get are around the legal requirements for selling to schools. And this is a quick snapshot. It's nothing too surprising. If you want to sell dairy to a school, you have to be licensed by the Oregon Department of Agriculture. If you want to sell eggs, you have to have an egg handling license, which are not too difficult to get. If you're selling fresh, whole fruits and vegetables, there's actually no state or federal regulations. That doesn't mean that the school district won't impose some regulations. Sometimes they'll want a food safety walkthrough or a good handling practices certification, but there's no federal or state regulations. However, if you're going to prepare that fresh product, chop it up, or process it in any way, it does need to be in a food handler's certified processing facility. And then all meats and poultry also have to be in USDA inspected plants. So if you're a school and you're ready to make a local purchase, school purchasing can be tricky, and I'm not going to go into all of it right now, but what I want to point out is that most farm to school purchasing happens in this small, it's called a micro purchase. Anything under $10,000 is considered a small purchase. And that means that you don't have to identify 3 quotes. All you have to do is do some preliminary research and then make the purchase. So it makes the local purchase a lot simpler for the school food buyer when it's in that small micro purchase range, which is still pretty significant for some smaller producers. That's where a lot of farm to school purchasing happens in Oregon, especially when programs are getting started. One thing also to consider that's been really successful is forward contracts. So these are not legal agreements. They're not actually binding in any way, but they're a good faith agreement between a school district or center-based program and a producer. And you might want to do that if you want some crops that you that may not be available all year round, and you want to make sure to secure them when they're available, and you want a large quantity. It also can really help producers to plan ahead and plant enough if they know that you are intending to buy the product. So in Oregon, we are really fortunate that we have a very strong farm to school program at a state level. We were one of the first states to have a position in both the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Department of Agriculture dedicated to farm to school. So we have those positions, and we have been able to successfully pass a farm to school funding bill that provides a number of grant programs to support farm to school. So I'm going to talk about 3 of the grant programs that pertain particularly to procurement. The other ones are focused on education and technical assistance. So the biggest procurement grant in the state is a non-competitive procurement grant. And basically what this means is that any school district or center-based program, meaning like a Head Start or early care program, receives a certain amount of money based on the amount of meals that they serve that they can use to spend on Oregon grown or processed products. So essentially, you get free money on top of your normal food service budget, but you can only spend that money on products grown or processed in Oregon. There's very few exceptions. So for the most part, all things apply. The exceptions are mostly fluid milk, so in the little containers that go on everyone's tray, and some of the sliced bread that they use. Otherwise, anything grown, harvested, caught, raised, or manufactured in Oregon can be bought with these funds. If you're a school food buyer, you can also use up to 25% of those funds for sourcing those products, or for the labor involved in preparing those products, or for promoting those products. So there's a little bit of extra money that you can use when buying local means you have to spend a little more time working to find and buy, or a little more time preparing the products that you've purchased. So then there's a competitive procurement grant, which can be used for all the same things as the non-competitive procurement grant, but it's extra money that's available to you as a school food buyer when you have used up all your non-competitive funds. You can apply for more funding through the competitive procurement grant. And those grants are rolling monthly once you've used up all of your non-competitive funds. And they're really, the preference points for these competitive procurement grants are awarded for real innovative purchasing, and purchasing that supports minority-owned businesses that have sustainable growing practices, fair labor practices, kind of go above and beyond what you've normally purchased. So you can use up your non-competitive procurement funds, then you can apply for more competitive procurement funds, and you can apply more than once for those funds. And then the last grant is for producers that I'm going to talk about. And this is a grant that you can apply for as a producer to fund equipment and infrastructure that you need to scale your production to meet the demands of the school marketplace. So if you want to better serve schools or center-based programs in your region, and what you need is a greenhouse or a delivery truck or a walk-in cooler, any of these things can be funded through this equipment and infrastructure grant. So Oregon has all this great funding available, but that's not the only funding available if you're interested in buying local. Sometimes people forget that any funding that you have for your USDA school meals can be used to buy local. You don't have to use it with your commodity providers. There's ways that you can move your commodity food budget to buy fresh unprocessed fruits and vegetables. So the USDA pilot project allows you to do that. If any of you participate in the fresh fruit and vegetable program, that program allows samples of fresh fruit and vegetables daily to students. That money can also be used to buy local. And then the DoD Fresh program is another way that you can buy local using your commodity funds. And that is through online purchasing, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you have DoD Fresh. And if you have questions, happy to answer them. So that's a little picture of getting started with Farm to School in Oregon. And I look forward to hearing how some of you are engaged in Farm to School and how successful you are being, and happy to answer any questions too.
Thanks, Melina. Tegan, would you go next?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for being here for this important conversation. And I'm just going to share a little screen presentation here. Okay. So I'm Tegan Moran, and I'm with OSU Extension Services, the Small Farms Program. And I work regionally in Benton, Lynn, and Lane counties, although our Small Farms Program does operate statewide. So our Small Farms Program, we are here as a public service to do education and outreach. And we work directly with land stewards, landowners, homesteaders, and commercial operations alike. Ultimately, what we do is explore what's possible on the land. We help to address challenges or solve problems, often with research-backed information or connecting people to resources. And we connect people to one another. And we do that through farmer networks, through email listservs, through partnerships. So we work really closely with community partner organizations like Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, like the Farm to School Network, to ultimately support and advocate for the needs of small farmers in Oregon. So before I go too far though, the most common question I get is, what's a small farm? So in Oregon, we are so fortunate to have rich and fertile soils. And so what we can grow, the animals we can raise, the grass and pastures is very diverse. So it varies. Small farms can range from 1/4 of an acre to over 100. But generally, the people and the farms that we work with sell direct to consumer. What that means is they sell at farmers markets, direct to chefs at restaurants, farm stands, community supported ag boxes, so veg boxes, or in this case, directly to schools. And so I really want to stress the point that we need and want small scale producers to sell to schools. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Selling direct to schools could be a really great fit for a lot of our small farms in Oregon, a great fit for their business. Small scale farms are an integral part of a thriving local food system. I work a lot thinking about food systems, which ultimately means how do we create a system where our food and access points are strong and our community has access to the healthy food that they need. Farmers recognize that selling to schools could enable them to grow and sell different crops or to market crops that they can't sell otherwise. Melina gave a great example of small apples that might not be attractive at market, but to a child, they're just the right fit. And the relationship with schools is also a really amazing marketing opportunity for small local farms. There's a lot of education around farms who are featured in schools. They can be listed on newsletters that go home to parents. So it's really great marketing. I'm going to share a few of the things that I hear from small scale farmers when the conversation comes to selling to schools. School budgets are low. They're shaped by the large wholesale market. The price they can pay is way less than I can afford to sell for. Another thing I hear, I have to be GAP certified. Melina mentioned this. It's a food safety certification, but it's an extensive process. It's time and money. I also hear schools don't have flexibility. So if I can't meet that exact order and the exact time, I would lose the contract. I also hear from small scale producers, I don't grow enough to meet the quantities that they need. I have to sell to a whole school district, and I don't have that volume. I also hear they require special packaging or processing or delivery that I may not be able to do or can't afford to do. I also hear I would like to grow food or raise animals just for my local school, my neighborhood school. Is that an option? Lots of small scale farmers in Lane County in our region have concerns or misconceptions about what selling to schools means. So I spend a lot of time connecting farmers with the Farm to School Network, with educational resources. But when there is a pervasive misconception out there and farmers talk to one another, it can be hard to change the story. So we can all work together to address those misconceptions and to identify the barriers that may actually exist so that we can improve improve the farm to school system. And as I'm an advocate for small scale producers, I want to see farm to school in Lane County work well for our small scale producers so we can have that vibrant local food economy. So again, I'm with the Small Farms Program. Feel free to reach out. I partner with all the organizations on this call and am here to support producers in addition to the services that your Farm to School Procurement Hub leader can give you and the Farm to School Network.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tegan. I'm going to go ahead and I'll be the last person talking before we can jump into Q&A or discussion amongst ourselves. My name is Laakea Kaufman. I'm the Procurement Hub Lead, working with both the Oregon Farm to School School Garden Network and with Willamette Farm and Food Coalition. And yeah, my job is to be that middle person basically between food producers in our region and sites, meaning that can mean whole school districts, or it can mean a small aftercare center. And yeah, I am here to help both producers and sites get more Oregon grown or processed products into schools, basically. And just like Melina had mentioned, my job includes what we call technical assistance, but that can mean actual technical assistance or helping facilitate connections between producers and sites. I can offer supports or examples, or I can do some of the background logistical work for you if you're finding that that's a challenge or a need for your business or your site. Yeah, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm going to show very quickly. I'm gonna just display on my screen the Oregon Harvest for Schools portal, just so that we can all look at it together. I'm not sure if you're able to, I'm having the same, okay, here we go. So this is the Oregon Harvest for Schools portal. It's a very, very simple and easy to use site that both producers and schools and care sites can use. And basically, when you go to the homepage, it shows you all of our options here for procuring local. And it can be something as simple as, okay, I'm clicking on, it's pretty intuitive, clicking on pears and seeing, okay, who's offering that. If you wanted to, for example, look in our region only, you could go to all. On the side here, where it says confirmed available, this here is divided by county. And so by clicking Lane, where we are, it'll show you all of the farms that are available to produce for sites in our county. And if you, let's say, for example, we look at Springbank Farm, they'll have a little bit of information about what the farm is, what the product is, the contact information for folks. They'll have information about liability, how these folks want to deal with delivering to sites, where that can be. And here you can see specifically there's some information about demographic, minority owned, women owned, kind of what Melina was saying. That can be relevant, especially when you're using the competitive grant funds to be making more of an effort in terms of your equity work, to be purchasing from producers who are of minority identities. And you'll have information here. This is a good example. You can see that 100 pounds is the minimum for delivery of these blueberries, but depending on location, do less. And you might assume that because they're in Lebanon and we're in Lane County, that they might have some flexibility in terms of their minimum amounts. And so this can be super helpful information if you're looking to buy and just to get into contact with people. One important thing about the portal to note is that it is non-transactional, meaning that if you're looking to buy potatoes from a farm, for example, you won't see an option here to add something to a cart. I know we're all pretty accustomed to that these days, to being able to get something really instantly online, but the portal is meant to just be a point of contact and connection for sites and food producers to get into contact with one another, basically. So you would be able to, through this farm's profile on the portal, be able to call their office or their cell or email them directly about order inquiries that you might be looking for. The other thing that I want to mention about the portal is that as a producer, whether you're a farmer or a food producer in our region, it is non-committal to have your information on here. A lot of folks think there's some trepidation around as a producer putting your farm and your contact and all of the potential products, because maybe you're worried that you'll get a series of phone calls from schools demanding bushels of apples, and you might be scared that you can't meet that demand. But of course, that's as simple as just telling folks that you don't have that at this time. So it's not by signing up for the portal, you are by no means guaranteeing a district or a site that you will absolutely always have product for them. But that being said, it is a really useful point of connection for getting to have that exchange between food producers and sites. By having contact information, you all can plan ahead and speak with each other about future orders, or I'm looking to get this at this time. For our fresh fruits and vegetable program, we want to feature locally grown carrots. When might we be able to order something like that from you all? And then the other thing I want to mention from the producer side of things is that we have, there's an intake form that I'll put a link right now to it for folks who are interested, but it's basically, it's a very simple producer intake form where you'll input your information, and all the information that you input will basically spit it out on a spreadsheet, and on our end, we will input it to the portal so that your information as a producer can be featured and found by school districts and sites, etc. I should mention, the last thing I want to say about the portal too is that even sites who haven't received state funding, like the funding sources that Melina was mentioning, even sites that haven't received grant funding can still use this to purchase products. So if a school had never received this state funding before, but was still trying to, maybe as a school-wide culture shift, adopt more farm to school practices, more local food incorporating into their meals, they could still go onto the Harvest for Schools portal, find a food producer and contact them that way. So again, that's another way to just boost your visibility if you're looking to get more sales in the local food markets. That's what I want to say about that, I think. And then I just wanted to now open it up to all of the folks attending. It seems like we have a nice intimate group. And so maybe if everyone is comfortable introducing themselves and perhaps what what brought them here. Are you a farmer? Do you work in a school district? And getting a sense of, yeah, of where folks are at and what you're interested in. And again, opening it up for questions or discussion.
I'm more than happy to start. You want somebody to just jump in? My name is Jill Quadros. I write menus for Eugene School District 4J, and I have a lot of money to spend in, I think, all 4 of those areas. And so I'm always looking for new opportunities. The funny thing is I was unaware of the portal. So I have already added it to my little ordering toolbox up on my screen. So that was wonderful. Thank you very much for talking about that. I don't know where I've been all this time. Mostly I just try to do my networking on my own with local farmers that either have reached out to me or who, I go looking for kiwi berries and I pick up the phone. So that's a great resource. I super appreciate that I joined this just for that today.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
My name is Ben Tilley, and along with my mother behind me, Debbie, we operate Crossroads Farm. We are just north of Eugene, between Coburg and Harrisburg. We've been farming here about 35 years, and we specialize in the nightshade family: chilies, tomatoes, eggplant, and everything else in that family. And then we got a part of this year because last year we connected with a couple of schools to sell some of our fruit and some of our squash at the end of the year. So we just wanted to join and see what other opportunities there might be to participate in working with our local schools. We'd love nothing more than to feed the children here in the community that we live in. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, this is Carla McQuillan, and I am the Executive Director of Children's Choice Montessori Schools. And I was wondering how we get your locally grown food guide.
Sure. Rachel, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can. We have an online version that I can link in the chat here, but otherwise the paper copies are available for free in a lot of the places where you would find local food. So places like Kiva or Sundance, a lot of the co-ops, the farmers markets also have a lot of copies, or Hummingbird has a ton of copies, or Glory Bee. But I'll put a link to the electronic version as well in the chat.
Great. I wanted to, I'm not sure if other folks feel more comfortable introducing themselves in the chat. That's totally fine. It sounds like there are a couple of folks, at least from the initial introductions, who have done some farm to school selling before, and maybe not. I'm so surprised, Jill, that you said that about not knowing the portal, since y'all are such a big, y'all order like in such large volumes, but that's pretty telling. And so, yeah, I just wanted to hear from folks who had sold to schools, or if you are a school and purchased from producers before, what do you feel like, what is working for you in this process? And what do you feel like are the challenges that need to be worked out from your perspective?
We asked that question again, just in case it includes me.
Yes, yeah. I'm asking for folks who have either sold, producers who have sold to sites, or sites like yours who purchase local food. Like, what do you feel like is working, and where do you feel like are the challenges or the gaps that we could be meeting more effectively in our region?
Well, I think I'll be honest with you. In the last year, the challenges have been absolutely COVID related. We didn't know what we were serving, when, how, all of that, and we just didn't get to reach out to local farmers the way we had in our first year of self-op. So that's a challenge. That was our big challenge. The challenge in the year to come is going to be my situation where I would imagine that I will not be able to offer what I normally offer, which is a salad bar of fruits and vegetables that children get to choose using a community spoon to serve their tray. And so I have to do now, I'm guessing that what I have to do for the year to come would be what we call in our industry is hard serve. So we package it and hand it to them, and that is their choice. They don't get to make that choice. We do an offer versus serve. There's that choice in school nutrition, and offering is when you get it on an offering bar and you see the kiwi berries and you grab them, or you go, oh, I tasted this last time, I didn't like them, but I do want to grab these strawberries. I would imagine that I won't be going back to that, at least in the year coming. So then I have to say to myself, okay, am I really in a situation where I get to have kids try things new? I just did watermelon radishes the other day in food boxes, and I got some positive responses, and I got some really negative responses. Negative responses from maybe people within my organization, like, what are you putting in there? Kids are not going to like those. But I just endured those criticisms. So, I also don't see my end users eating because they're not in the cafeterias. So I don't get to see what goes into the compost bins. So I have to probably be much more traditional than I've had been doing. And then the other thing that's tough for me is when things are not, when I'm getting them field washed. I do struggle on just a normal time of taking a product that's field washed, but not necessarily ready, and I don't have good solid facilities to bring them into a centralized and then ship them back out. That's a little barrier for me. So sometimes when a farmer says, yeah, I can't get them as, sort of nice and presentable as you would need, and that my kitchen sinks are not filled with, mud or sand or what have you. Some of those can be troublesome for me, but generally speaking, 4J, since going self-op, is really willing to try as much as we can. We don't mind the failures. We're willing, the joke we say in the office is we're willing to kiss a lot of toads to see, what we can get with out of it. So that would be the barriers from my point. And these are barriers that won't stay in place, hopefully forever, with this, COVID sort of relaxing. But right now it's going to be tough for me to really try new things.
I wonder, Debbie and Ben, could you speak to how the challenges that you have on your end of the spectrum, in terms of the challenges and like successes in terms of being farmers and selling to schools? And maybe did you run into any of those issues that Jill was mentioning about, like preparing or processing and to a standard that was acceptable to the schools? Or what was your experience like?
Well, last year was really the first year we'd ever sold to any schools. It was just a new thing for us. We primarily sell to farmers markets, Eugene and Corvallis, and a handful of restaurants in both towns as well. But yeah, we were able to, like, our example was, we had a lot of smaller winter squashes that were kind of personal sized that were really hard to sell at market, a lot like the small apples example. And it ended up being a perfect fit for the school that we sold to. The washing thing, I can see that. We are really small scale. We farm about 4 acres. and it's primarily chilies and tomatoes, with a few other miscellaneous things, cucumber, squash, other things in season with that. We have a couple acres of cane berries, a whole range of different types of raspberries of different colors and sizes. And really, we're just trying to see, because we were able to sell to some schools last year, we now see that as a potential for us for things that we're not able to sell directly to restaurants or at farmers markets. And so it's likely we would maybe need to scale up or just kind of figure out, what schools might be the best fit for the size that we are. We do have, we have a large walk-in cooler here. My parents have been doing this for about 35 years. I'm in my third year here of slowly starting to take things over. We also have a food processing facility on site. We used to operate a brewery here, but we've converted that now to a hot sauce manufacturing facility. And so we make a line of fermented hot sauces and dried chili powders, and are going to start getting into more, different like rubs and things. One thing we were thinking of during this presentation is some of our hot sauces, we grow some chili peppers that produce no detectable heat at all. So it's really just the flavor, jalapenos, even habaneros that produce no heat. And we make 3 or 4 hot sauces with no heat on them. And over the last couple of years during the holiday markets, we've started to get quite a following with some children, even as young as 8, 9, 10 years old, really liking some of our hot sauces and returning to continue to purchase them. So that was just a funny idea we thought of. We could make a line of kids hot sauces for some schools, but we're really just interested in what kind of options are out there. And, we're very small, but that also means we're very adaptable to things. And if there were some specific needs that we could attend to, we'd be willing to, add that on and adapt what we're doing here to make that work. So really, we're just here to, see what other options and potential opportunities we have to participate in this.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that. And thanks for, Melina, that's what I was thinking about too. I think there's lots of potential for opportunity, and I appreciate that you're naming that, Ben, kind of what Tegan talked about a little bit of the misconception of small farms not being a good fit for it, when in fact, I think small farms are especially posed to be a little bit more adaptable or have more experience working person to person and planning ahead and growing for those markets. And so I think there's a lot of potential in our area for that to expand. Carla, I don't know if you wanted to share at all. Do you have experience buying local yet at all for your site?
No, we're new at this. We have on occasion some of the farmers markets, but not something that we do on a regular basis. So this is all pretty new to us.
Is there anything that would ease your mind about starting, or because it sounds like we have some folks who are like a little bit more experienced at purchasing and folks that have sold a little bit. I guess I'm just opening it up in case there's anything that you want any logistical questions that you have about getting started, anybody could answer.
Not that I'm thinking of. Maybe once I get into it, the answer will be yes, but not at this time.
Yeah, well, thanks for that.
Carla, did your program get a non-competitive procurement grant this time? Or what's the name of your program again? I could check really quick.
Are you asking me, Carla? Mm-hmm. Our program is Children's Choice Montessori, and we did not get funding the first round because of the legislature, but we did just apply for the competitive grant that closed on April 30th.
Oh, great.
So we haven't heard back yet on that.
Okay, yeah, any day. Yeah, I don't anticipate that those funding cuts will ever happen again. That was purely pandemic related. So whatever you were initially awarded, you can count on that probably being what you start with in the next school year when the biennium starts fresh.
Oh, great. Good to know.
I have a question because it's also connected to one of the things I hear. I grow most of my produce is in the summertime when schools are closed. So I'm just wondering if there can be a response to summer purchasing in particular so that it's recorded on this session as well. And then the other piece of that is we know season extension with high tunnels or greenhouses would enable more small producers to provide during the school year. Are those a part of the infrastructure grant program? And if not, oh, they are. Great. Good. So that's something I need to get out there more widely.
Yeah.
Okay.
That grant, this was the first biennium that grant existed, and the funding got cut significantly due to the budget cuts. So they only had $250,000 to grant out. This next biennium, we're hoping that they'll have closer to $1 million. So we're hoping they'll be able to award a lot more of those grants. And I see farm to school across Oregon, that really being a lever point where if we can better equip producers to not only scale more maybe for schools or extend season, but also to address what Jill was saying, have the wash and pack facilities to get their produce in a form that schools are more ready to utilize. All of those things would be covered. So this last round, anything from there was a tamale making machine for a small business that was awarded. There was a wash and pack, a cooler, a hoop house, a tractor. All those kinds of things are up for funding. And then summer meals, Tegan, can be sometimes a really great time for a district to try out local purchasing because often the numbers are lower and the reimbursement is higher, and they have a little more space. So we've had some great pilot programs happen across the state in the summer where a district was able to test the waters and try out product and then identify which ones could translate into the school year when they have higher numbers. So summer can be a really exciting time to get into farm to school. And obviously so many things are available, but luckily in Oregon, we can extend the season and have a lot of things available most of the year, at least in most of the state.
Thank you. Very helpful.
And maybe Jill, you might have an answer for this, I'm not sure, but do schools, when they vacate for the summer, do they if they had things that they had purchased, say frozen from a local producer, do they have to vacate? Does that inventory have to be completely cleared out during the summer, or is there storage capacity for things like that?
My district has storage capacity. We have our own, and then we also utilize a company called Snow Temp for offsite capacity because we do like to jump in with both feet when we can find a really good deal on something, or we have to buy more than we can house. So yeah, we find it price-wise better to have those facilities that are sort of our beck and call. Yeah. Last summer, what was interesting is I got to actually, I got my hands on leftover DOD monies towards the end, middle of June. There was leftover money and I just kept asking for it and I kept getting it. And so I tried a lot more summertime fresh fruits and vegetables that way than I had in the past. So I'm crossing my fingers that people who didn't maintain the large volume of service over this course of the school year would have maybe, some money left in the coffers. Because that was great. We got to try things that we hadn't, melons and things that we hadn't before. And then we had we had money. I don't remember how it worked, but we still had money in September. So we got to hit stone fruit and things that we normally, are running out of by the time we get back to school. Fires didn't help us in the fall a lot, but we did get a couple 3 weeks worth of stone fruits onto our menu. Yeah.
Great. And I feel like we touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to ask these questions directly in case the people in this virtual room can make those asks. But basically just posing the question like sites, what do you need from producers? Like, what do you need like that you feel like maybe isn't being communicated clearly or isn't happening as efficiently as you want to, and producers, what do you need from sites or school districts? Like, what would you like to see or have done to make this process easier on either end?
Well, I think just being aware of all of these potentials and opportunities just for us is a big help. Just knowing that there's interest and money out there. If I did just a little work on my own, just reaching out and, providing information on what I have available when, just a seminar like this has been tremendously helpful. So from where we're starting, I don't know what else I could suggest other than, the more info I have, the more potential I have to make connections. So.
Thanks for that.
I would just share something from the producer's perspective, from the farmer's perspective. If schools are wanting to establish a relationship, reaching out in winter, fall or winter time to really communicate with farms, that's just when they would have the most capacity to do that. And also how beneficial it is to start that connection, thinking ahead to the coming season for those plantings. That because I've heard lots and lots of smaller scale producers say, I would love to plant just a 1/4 acre, or I'd love to plant something just for the schools. But there's of course that planning period and that advance notice.
So I know there's a number of challenges the school districts are, faced with. One is time. We have a lot less time than we would like to pursue those. And I'll be honest with you, oftentimes if someone reaches out and says, hey, I've got blueberries or I've got this, they often are the ones that I buy from, because they called me and they caught me on the day that I was able to spend 15 minutes building that relationship. And I know that's not great on procurement levels. For micro purchase, it's fine, but it's just hard. It's really hard to dedicate the time that it needs to pursue these relationships. And so the more that both sides can push that through, I'll find that if I call and leave a message, and then I call and leave a message, I probably will have missed the season or what have you. So yeah, it's kind of both, just like being right there and just pushing it through, because it's hard for me to maintain the relationships. And I know it's hard for the, the farmers, but the more we can just stay committed. I think, things like this are perfect. I didn't even have Crossroads Farms in my Rolodex. So here we go.
Yeah, thanks for saying that on both sides. That kind of brings me to where I wanted to close us anyway, is just by naming that I think in my time in this work, and it sounds like you all are naming that as well, that this is just as much about business as it is about building relationships. And for two of the busiest professions that I know of, which is education and farming, I know that is much easier said than done. But this really is it's community and food system changing work that everybody on this call is engaged in. And so I'm really glad that you all are here, and for the folks listening to have gained or the folks who will listen to this recording to get to gain some of that wisdom and experience from what you're sharing. So thank you so much. I will send out following this, and to the folks who also registered for this, they'll get the recording of this, and I'll send along those resources that I mentioned, just in case you weren't able to follow those links just directly into the chat box. I'll put the links to the portal and the intake form for producers. Yeah, and you all should get all of that information. So thank you again so much for being here. We appreciate y'all, and have a good season if you're a farmer, and have a good summer if you're an educator. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
Thanks.
facilitating.
Yeah, thanks y'all.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.